What's up, Chad? Another day, another space.
Another day to the space, Mr. THOReau.
Chad and Chad.
Yeah, great space last night, guys. Also, there was like 300 people there. I'm pretty sure, almost like the whole time.
Yeah, there were there were about 300 people, and they were there for like 2 hours of a conversation about the integration of Rune and Luna and all that stuff.
Yeah, the lunatics are strong, and the more we can do to bridge that gap and explain things, the better. So definitely more of that to come. It's so exciting to see that they're definitely coming around. And Sephi was super interested, and he's got a really strong following of Terra people that are very savvy. So huge.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on this project is because we are, instead of in an isolated fashion, just trying to create our own ecosystem and that doesn't relate to or add to anybody else's. We're doing the opposite of that. And so we can go to the Terra community, the lunatics, and say, hey, THORChain is actually contributing to the value proposition of your own ecosystem. And so we're helping you. We're part of you. We're contributing to you. We're not this isolated thing that exists unto itself. And so that becomes very a bullish kind of mentality, because we can do that with Terra, we can do that with Doge, and we can do that with Atom, and we can do that with Dash or Tezos or Cardano. It doesn't matter. You can insert any chain, and they all become fans of THORChain because they're contributing to their own project.
Yeah, it's making me even more bullish. It's it's not competitive. It's once they realize what THORChain does, it's this makes the project that I love way better. And then THORChain captures value from our project, and it creates a flywheel with every project that integrates.
Yeah, absolutely, and that obviously includes Bitcoin, because I was just talking to somebody recently who works a part of Bitcoin Magazine, and they got a conference coming up, I think. And I was just talking to the guy about maybe doing some speaking there at the Bitcoin conference, because from their perspective, they see anything that works with layer one Bitcoin is considered to be part of the Bitcoin ecosystem from their perspective. And so I'm like, hey, we do exactly that. We help the Bitcoin community out by providing all these services. And so if I can convince this guy to let me speak at the conference, I can start to kind of tell people about what THORChain is within that ecosystem. That's huge.
There's too many conferences for you to go to, because every single ecosystem, entire crypto ecosystem conference is relevant to what we're doing.
Oh, absolutely. I could probably just
I feel like you could be every weekend at a conference.
I could quit my job as a core dev and just be a full-time person running around. But I don't want to do that either, though, because it's I don't want. I'm just trying to get the word out there and let it kind of hit that critical mass and then kind of explode on its own from that point. And so I'm just trying to advocate for that point and get more people in different communities to start talking to their own people in the Bitcoin community or the Doge community or whatever, the lunatics, and get people to kind of spread the wildfire.
Totally. You definitely do a great job of planting that seed, though. I know, I probably wouldn't be up talking about THORChain all the time if it wasn't for hearing how you have put it. So you're definitely planting the seed for more people to spread that word.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I started to do this and start to speak publicly just because I was one of the people in the world that understood the protocol most deepest fashion, and I'm not a terrible public speaker per se, and so I just kind of elected. I was kind of elected to do this for a little while, at least.
Hell yeah! So we're a few minutes in. I guess we can kind of officially kick things off here. So welcome to the THORChain Weekly. We've got a handful of updates. Thor games, ledger integration, Rune bond increases, removing the caps discussion, some new integrations, exciting stuff like that. So we'll kind of go down the list here and then open up to questions later on as well. Let's, as usual, maybe start with quick little intros. You want to go ahead first, Chad?
Yeah, sure. I'm Chad Barraford. I'm one of the core devs and technical lead in the project.
Hey, I'm Familiar Cow. I'm helping host this space. I have my own project, Veneer Threads. I make sneakers for THORChain people.
And I'm Chad THOReau, community member, big fan of THORChain, hosting spaces, writing content, doing tutorials for THORSwap, just generally trying to help with the community. Cool. So, yeah, it looks like first up, the Thor games have officially kicked off, right? Looks like I don't know if anyone from Nine Realms was jumping up today for this, but Chad, do you have anything to speak on with that?
Not terribly at this moment. I'm not engaged in the Thor games myself all that much. I'm focused on other things in the project. Nine Realms understands this stuff much better than I. But from my understanding, it started off and it's gonna run for like 1 or 2 weeks. We're gonna see what things that the community can expose for issues or problems or bugs or what have you, and then the Nine Realms team will, I think, pay out some rewards to anybody who finds security problems or bugs or issues. And there's like different tiers of like how much room you get for the severity of the issue that you discovered. And then we'll go through that like week or 2 weeks and we'll find what's discovered. Hopefully nothing, but you never know. And we'll fix it, whatever bugs come up, and then, carry on. So hopefully we'll get the synthetics actually launched on mainnet, either this month or next.
Yeah. So very exciting. So as far as like this is like people can start banging on it right now, right? Because I know a few days ago there were some StageNet issues and like on the Luna integration as well. Like I know I was trying to do some stuff with synths and Luna, and like things were kind of paused and a little bit wonky on StageNet. So as far as like that's now ready to go.
I think so, but I could be wrong. I hope I'm not wrong in speaking out of turn, but I believe so.
Yeah, I believe Orion posted yesterday about the start block for the Thor games. I believe that was yesterday. I don't know when the end block is, but it should be sometime in the next 1 or 2 weeks. Details are in the THORChain dev Discord. So I believe that's the best place to look at like the THORChain, the Thor games Notion page, along with like the critical objectives. So if you're trying to participate, that's probably where to go to get the best info, and to contact Nine Realms if you're interested or just want to get more info about it.
Yeah, there's probably on Nine Realms Twitter as well. I'm seeing if I can actually find a tweet that we could just pin up.
Yeah, I was looking for one. I didn't see one.
Got it. Yeah. Well, yeah, at Nine Realms _ I believe people can find everything needed through there. But yeah, awesome that it's here now. I'll probably get on StageNet today and poke around and mint my first synth, do my first Luna transaction. That'll be fun to just kind of plant the flag.
It's Chad. Chad Barraford, have you done any testing with the synths recently? Like since it went live on StageNet?
No, I actually have not. I tested it a bunch when I wrote the code way back when. But it's always a bad idea that the engineer who built it to actually to test it manually, because the engineer that built it has a certain mentality of like how they coded it or how they think about it will be used, and they're kind of stuck in a specific mentality. And you really want like somebody who is not the engineer who built it to like do things that you didn't expect, or some weird scenario or some case. So I tried not to actually do that, just because it wouldn't be all that helpful, to be honest with you. As weird as that sounds.
Maybe since we don't have like too much on the list, maybe we should give like some more basic info on synths if you feel up for it. Just to, consider that new people can always be popping in and out, and not just to stay always totally in the weeds on only the updates, but maybe just like a quick explanation of like what the implications of synths coming really will bring.
Yeah, so it's quite a few things. Probably the simplest and first thing you could argue that it does is that you can now hold it. You can almost imagine synths as being like a lightning network of sorts, right? Allowing you to hold like Bitcoin and be able to transact very quickly and efficiently in 5-second block times, and pay very little amounts of money in gas. And so that's one of the valuable things about the lightning network, right? And so technically speaking, any and all assets in the crypto space effectively gets a mechanism to be able to transact quickly, which is kind of the most simplest kind of use case for it. One of the other use cases for it is arbitrage. And so being able to arbitrage all the pools using synthetics is a lot cheaper, faster, and more capital efficient for the arbitrage bots to do. And it's also like just better for the general network, because if you have a pool like Bitcoin, for example, that's got 10-minute block times, And so you want to do an arbitrage of that by sending in some Bitcoin and taking out some room to the pool to correct the price. Well, the problem is that it takes 10 minutes for that to happen, right? Which is, it's a lot of time for the price to be corrected. But with synthetics, this network can be, the price can be corrected within 5 seconds instead of 10 minutes. And so that gives every asset, despite its block time and its individual attributes of that individual chain, gets us kind of universal system of let's arbitrage this system, this pool, as quickly as we can, which is just 5 seconds. That's really kind of cool. And then we're also going to be launching, at some point, we'll be launching IBC, which I actually reached out to Jack Zampolini, or Zampolone, I can't remember his last name, but he's from the Cosmos team. He's been part of the IBC from the very beginning. I'm trying to work out with him a way for them to get involved, and we can just kind of pay those IBC pros to do the IBC implementation for us to get that going, so that you can beam out Rune and synthetic Bitcoin, synthetic Ethereum, and all these kind of things. Because once you can do that, you can send these synthetic assets to Terra to jump into a Cosm Wasm smart contract to do other things that you might want to do, some trading bot things that we were talking yesterday with Sefi or Sefil, or who that guy's name was. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. That's pretty impressive, because now you can take those synthetics as an entry and exit point within the entire economic system of Cosmos. Have a Bitcoin, have an Ethereum, have a USDT, have a UST, have a everything out there, a Doge, and then be able to throw them into a derivatives exchange on Injective, for example, or whatever. So that's really kind of empowers the greater Cosmos ecosystem, which is pretty interesting. And then the last thing that it does, which is really important, is that it gives way for THORFi to exist. And so there's these plans that we've been talking about for a while, and we keep on kind of iterating on the implementation details and then kind of improving it and getting it further down that road in a sense, where you can use these synthetics to get loans to 3x long your position on Bitcoin, for example, which is pretty amazing. You can use these synthetics to lock them up into THORChain and get a fixed rate yield on those things. And we've even been talking lately about implementing a stable coin for the THORChain network, a native asset stable coin that we're kind of looking at the UST design and the MIM design, and kind of maybe even merging those two things together to create a new stable coin design that in some ways is more decentralized than even UST. Not to say that we're trying to compete with UST. I actually am a big fan of UST. I think it's a great design and product, but having a native stablecoin to our own chain makes things a lot easier in terms of getting DeFi to be more efficient. And so, or THORFi more accurately. So we've been talking about all this stuff for a long time. And it's been a long time coming, but synthetics kind of creates this entire new doorway into a massive economic value proposition for not just for THORChain, but for the greater ecosystem.
So would you say, THORUSD is something that you guys are actively considering now? I thought the last update that I saw with THORUSD is kind of back shelf type thing that is probably not going to happen, but we'll see.
Yeah, so it was back shelf for a while, and we had a few different ideas of how that could be implemented. And then when we came up with another idea of how to implement the lending protocol, we realized that if we use THORUSD as the debt asset, so that whenever you take a loan out, you're providing your Bitcoin, for example, and then you're taking out a THORUSD loan, and that's the only asset that the network would support, that would change the situation and allow us to do things that you could not normally do in any other DeFi protocol in the space. And so we have attributes planned in this lending protocol of 0% interest, cross-chain, no liquidations, these kind of things that we've never seen, or even as low as 100% collateralization ratio, 101%, whatever the number is. We can do things that nobody else has done in the space at all. It's completely unheard of, but we have an ability to do that because of just the structure of this network, and we can do that better than pretty much everybody else in the space. And so, we're super excited about this idea, but we still need to iron out some of the concepts and design attributes and to make sure it's all on a level.
I know it's thinking like far ahead, but are there like anything you can share about the thoughts on how the Thor USD design might work?
Yeah, so there's two designs that are being considered at this time between the devs. One is more of a MIM design of you lock up collateral of like a blue chip asset, which might be like Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example. So you put up Bitcoin into the Bitcoin pool, you acquire LP units, and then from those LP units, you give them to the network, and then the network mints you a Thor USD quantity that's relational to your collateral. So that was kind of more of like using the pools themselves as collateral for a loan. And then once you have that Thor USD, you can swap it into Bitcoin and then put the Bitcoin back into the pool again, and then get more LP units, get another loan, and then circle that 2, 3, 4 times, whatever the hell the number would be, which is pretty interesting. The other way we've been thinking about it is kind of like a hybrid design between UST and MIM, where there's the UST mechanism of like you burn Rune and then you mint USD, or you burn USD and you mint Rune. But then you can also do the whole MIM thing, a concept of I'm just going to provide capital to the pool, get LP units, lock up those LP units as collateral for a Thor USD loan, and then be able to long my position on Bitcoin or even short the dollar if I really wanted to. I think so. There's like two different designs that the devs are kind of been like considering and thinking over, and making sure we think of as many angles as possible to make sure it is economically safe.
Very cool. Yeah, the first one, I guess it's like pretty relatable to synths. I mean, it sounds very similar. Like rather than minting the synthetic BTC in that example, you're minting the Thor USD. The looping thing sounds crazy, and I definitely have a lot to get my head around with that concept. It sounds like it could put a lot of stress on the system potentially. I don't know.
Not so much. Like this is exactly what people use MakerDAO for. Like the number one use case of why people use MakerDAO more than any other reason, at least in my opinion, is they want to 3x long their position on Ethereum. So they provide Ethereum as collateral. They get some DAI, right? Like usually it's like maybe it's 150% collateralization, right? So you put up $150 and you get $100 worth of DAI, or maybe you do 200% depending on how like conservative or liberal you want to be about your liquidation risk. And so you like put up $200 and you get out whatever the number is, like 125 of DAI, and then you put the DAI up and you get up 125 of DAI, then you get out $50 of DAI, and then you take the DAI up, and so you can loop it like 3 times before it becomes a waste of time. And so in THORChain's case, you can do the same thing, but instead of like saying I'm going to go 3x long on Bitcoin, you can go 3x long on 3x long on Ethereum. You can go 3x long on Bitcoin. Oh, you can do it on Doge. You can do it on Luna. You can do it on BNB. You can do it on USDT. You can do it on like every asset within the industry. And if you think about it, like Maker is like a massive DeFi protocol, and it just does a single asset. What would happen if it actually supported all of crypto? Like that would be a very massive concept. And one of the things that we've been talking about is that like we actually have this idea that we can actually remove liquidations entirely, that the network is capable of doing that. And so there's no liquidation risk. Even if the collateral goes below the debt, it's actually a positive thing for the network and actually helps grow the network's value in a weird kind of way. We can get into the details like once we write up an official document and the community can read it and read the official proposal, and then converse and criticize it and talk it over and figure out if this is something the community wants to do or we don't want to do it as a community.
Of course, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about how everything's going to work, because all this is just kind of like brainstorming about how these features will work. There's no finalized design right now, and we have much more. We have things that are coming up much sooner than like these kinds of integrations, and a lot more time to talk about it. So I'm sure people will really want to discuss this kind of stuff in depth and learn about it before we get there.
Absolutely, of course. Yeah, it's all just thought process and proposals at this point. We haven't really even agreed within the core devs of what the correct design is, and there's just different ideas and people And that's all being, but like every time, right now it's on like V5. Internally, we call it V5. And so it's like right now it's on the fifth iteration of it. And every iteration is better than the previous one. And so we keep on iterating and like, oh, what if we did this? And that just like improves the entire thing and it makes it a lot more secure and economically sound. Like all these things just keep on happening. We keep on getting more and more bullish on the design and implementation.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear just like what, like all these things that are further down the line, but are possible because of the things that are rolling out right now, right? Like we kind of got off on this tangent because synths are coming, like, you know, the testing started, like they're basically here, just waiting to be rolled out onto the main chain. But like, you know, that's laying the groundwork for all this crazy stuff in the future. And one thought my mind kind of got blown during that, because like even with this looping strategy and all of that, like Rune is capturing that value each time, right? Because essentially it's going back into the pool and being split 50-50 to Rune, and then like the whole thing is kind of like happening again. So like the Rune value capture is being looped as well, and then obviously when Rune captures value, that allows for more liquidity to come in, because the security is now more valuable. So I get my mind blown every day with this.
All of these things, like all these THORFi features, even the Thor USD, like all of these things, lending, savings, even the POL, like all these things derive value to the Rune asset, and it doesn't even require you to touch it. That's so kind of fascinating about it. Is you can lock up some Bitcoin, layer one Bitcoin to the network into the savers, like the savings account, and get your fixed rate yield on that thing and never touch or own Rune at any point in that entire transaction. But yet the mere fact that you have actually executed that means that you've actually inherently driven value to the Rune asset. You've actually literally created buy pressure on the Rune asset, even though you didn't even touch it. Like it's kind of a crazy notion, but it's completely true.
They won't even have to know Rune exists. I mean, they'll just have to, you know, click earn on BTC and in a Robinhood simple type of app. Yeah. And then the nerds like us that are aware of Rune can be like, oh, well, I know what happens when there's $1 trillion of Bitcoin earning yield. I know where that's kind of coming
exactly. From. You have all these kind of Bitcoiners who have, you know, $1 trillion, whatever, and they're starting to throw Bitcoin to the network to earn fixed rate BTC on their BTC. Like, and we all know what's really happening there is that it's all driving value to the Rune asset in the end. But they have no idea about that. They have no idea they're even doing it. They're just like, oh, I can get my Bitcoin. I love that. I'm a Bitcoin maxi. I'll do that. Sure. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Endlessly exciting. But just to circle back, like, so synths are basically here, and that's laying the groundwork for all this stuff. So, you know, this stuff is real and happening, and great work is being done to get this stuff out, and the Thor games are on, so people can start banging on that system. And there's like we mentioned, Nine Realms put out like a reward tier sort of thing. So if people find bugs before it pushes fully live, then there's like rewards available, and that's happening now. And then after, sounds like, you know, maybe a couple weekly rounds of that, then it's going to be out in the wild.
Absolutely.
Sweet. So next thing we want to talk about, there's been some awesome integrations by the THORswap team this week. They integrated ledger support for Bitcoin, Doge, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, all the UTXO chains on THORswap, and they also, I believe, just put that like Xchain JS library out there so other people can use it, I believe. So that opens up ledger support for Bitcoin, which has really been a hotly requested feature, because a lot of people don't want to move their Bitcoin to a key store wallet or something else. They want to keep it on their hardware wallet. So having Bitcoin support on Ledger is just absolutely huge. So congrats to the THORswap team for pushing that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something we've been waiting for, as you were saying, for a long time, and I'm excited to get that code open source so that the rest of the community can pull upon it and integrate Ledger into their other UIs as well.
Yeah, really.
There's also big liquidity ads as well. Sorry, you can go, Jed.
Oh no, that's cool. I hadn't been watching the bot on the liquidity ads, but I bet. I mean, of course, like this is what everyone's been waiting for. Like especially bigger bigger wallets. You don't want to have your keys just in a hot wallet or a key store and stuff like that. And so this has been something that's been so like hotly in demand the entire time. And I don't know the complications that went into it. I know it's more complicated than it sounds on this one in particular. Like I know other chains have had Ledger already with THORChain for a while, but now to have the UTXO chains, to be able to swap from Bitcoin to anything else on THORChain or either way, and you're only signing a transaction from your ledger, like that's it. Like there's nothing, like you're not putting it into some sort of intermediary custodial thing or whatever. Like you're just it's only that one signature is pretty epic. And so yeah, definitely props to the THORSwap devs for pushing that out and especially for making it public. So now it's something that we'll just be able to see integrating into any app that is using THORChain.
Yeah, it's one of the things I sometimes get from people. They're like, "Oh, I don't like THORChain because I have to use a different wallet than my wallet, or like I have to use a THORChain specific wallet. I have to use THORSwap or something like this." And I'm just like, no, it's never actually the case. The only actually requirement, as you were saying, is just like being able to sign a Bitcoin transaction. And you have to sign it in a very specific way, like it's a very specific format of how you sign a Bitcoin transaction. And how you do like up returns and all this kind of stuff. But like the only actual requirement of the network is that you can sign a transaction on the source chain of whatever chain we're talking about. And so that they can integrate with any and all wallets across the entire space. They just have the devs of those wallets just have to spend the time to integrate it, which is not that hard.
Yeah, it's really just like bring your own wallet. I mean, like we're talking about all these different chains. So, if you're an Ethereum guy and you're just MetaMask only, like you can do that.
You could, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Cool. Yeah. So that's a huge one. Yeah, just exciting to see it finally roll out. I know it's been a conversation for quite a long time. So yeah, let's see what else we got on the update list here.
Yeah. So, I mean, adding Bitcoin liquidity with the ledger is now possible. So you can add it. There's room with the caps right now. And Chad, I believe there might be another caps raise coming very, very soon from what I hear. So, and I guess that also kind of leads into abolishing the caps going into mainnet. So that's kind of let's talk about that for a minute. Again, just like what's going on with the caps as we're heading into mainnet.
Yeah, so the core devs have been feeling kind of more bullish on the network in a sense in terms of its security and its reliability and all these kind of things. I mean, it's been running really smoothly for quite a while now, knock on wood, which we're very happy about, of course. Now that the amount of room that's bonded to the network is sufficiently high, whereas like in the earlier days, it wasn't that much room. It took time to turn all these people in and turn in more nodes and add more room to the system. Like that was intentionally a slow growth process we wanted to have that slow growth. But now we've gotten to the point where we have, a lot of room on the bond side. Of course, more will be added over the next, few months and whatever, or years potentially. But I think it's gotten to that point where like we think we've moved beyond the need to kind of force the growth of the pools to kind of match the growth of the bond. And so now, we've been adding, increasing the soft caps, about 2 million room like every Friday. And I think maybe today or maybe next week, I'm not really sure which one, we'll just remove the soft caps entirely, because at this point, there's about 20 million worth of ruin in the pools, and there's about the cap set to like 24 million or something like this, which is perfect. Like we want to make sure it's not like, you don't want those caps to be hit all the time, right? That was only true in the beginning because there was just so few room on the bond side that it was easy to hit those caps in a sense. It's not like that much money on the security side. But like you want to kind of sit in an optimal fashion where it's like a 2/3, 1/3, which is exactly where it is today. Like the network is doing exactly what it's designed to do. And the incentive pendulum is doing what it's designed to do to make sure that like people aren't just YOLOing, aping huge quantities of funds into the bonds, the pool side, to create an imbalance between the security and the pools, and then cause the incentive pendulum to kind of take away yield from the LPs and add more yield to the bond to incentivize those bond people to add more room to add more security. So it's doing it just as it's designed, which I'm actually kind of excited to see that happening now. So at this point, I'm not really quite sure we even need the soft caps anymore. The hard caps will always be there. There will always be a hard cap on the network that it won't exceed the number of rune in the pools will not exceed the number of rune in the bond. That'll always be true. That hard cap will always exist just for security reasons and making sure the economic safety of the funds are always there. But the soft cap, I don't think we really even need it anymore. But we might remove it today, or it might even happen next week. I'm not really quite sure.
Wow, that's huge. Yeah, that'd be exciting to just have it fully off. Obviously, there's always the hard cap, but like kind of similar to the desire for Ledger for so long. Like one of the common complaints people you would see around over much of the last 6 or 9 months would be like, oh, I want to add liquidity, but I can't. And now we're seeing it, the bond side is constantly scaling. Every churn, a couple new nodes are coming in. The nodes are competing and bonding more rune, which allows for more space. So like now I think it's at like 82% capacity I was seeing, I think yesterday, which is awesome to kind of just seeing it float in this range where, you can add liquidity if you want to, and seeing everything work as designed for kind of the first time, I guess, right? Because when the artificial caps were so much lower than the hard cap, then you're not really seeing the elegant incentive pendulum really playing out.
Right.
But now we're starting to see that.
Right. Yeah. And right now we have 77 nodes who are active, and we have right now is another like 9 or 10 that are waiting to be kind of churned into the network, adding millions of more, rune to the network, and like more nodes are just kind of popping up. And as we said before, like I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, that like we've kind of struck a deal with some of the investors, the early investors who have a lot of rune, who haven't had access. It's been like locked to rune; they haven't had access to it, and so we're going to start giving them access to the rune a bit early in a contract to make sure that they're gonna use that rune to add, rather than like dump it on the market and like cause the price to go down, whatever. They're gonna, take like a 100x yield on their investment or whatever the hell that number is. They're gonna build nodes and contribute to the security side, and build that up and help the network be more successful.
It's been great to see the past couple of weeks how the bonded rune has just has really gone up ever since Nine Realms have started really emphasizing just increasing the amount of bonded rune and scalability of the network, especially that like seed investor like basically relocking into making nodes. I mean, that's what rune is for. It's
right.
Not for dumping it on the market or whatever. It's for bonding for security to increase the scalability of the network, which is just, I mean, that's awesome. Like bond has increased pretty much every single week like clockwork. And things are looking great with 77 active nodes right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, especially when we launch THOReau like later this month. This will be the first time we've added a chain where there was no caps, and so a bunch of lunatics are hopefully going to kind of come in and add a bunch of Luna and Rune to that pool and kind of create a new actually 2 pools, Luna and UST. And see how the network kind of fares in that scenario.
Yeah, awesome. I guess there's probably nothing really new to report on the Luna integration. I mean, things are rolling around now. It's back up on StageNet, so sounds like everything is still quite on track for going fully live this month.
Yeah, I think things are still on track. The problem I think we ran into with THOReau that we haven't seen before on any of the other chains is that in most blockchains, the notation of how you represent like a Bitcoin is in what they call like 1E8 notation. So there's like 8 decimal points, which I think is like 100 million Satoshis as 1 Bitcoin. But for THOReau, for whatever reason, they chose to do it 1E6. And this is the first time we've seen something that's like a gas asset that is less than the standard issue 1E8. And so that caused some kind of like issues or bugs that need to be kind of worked out and solved and that kind of stuff. But I think we're still on track though to get this thing out and launch on KSNet by the end of the month.
Awesome. Yeah. Exciting. Yeah. I mean, a few days here or there, give or take, doesn't matter in the long run. We want it done right and seeing all the good work. Some of those tweets from Pluto are cool just to see him grinding on this integration. So shout out to Pluto for making a lot of this happen.
Yeah, he's been doing a good job on stage and getting these new chains. He worked on Doge and now Terra. I think he's working on Gaia next. And Adam and all that. So he's doing a great job just kind of pumping out new chain integrations like crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounded like I remember way back, it was that Adam was expected to be just before Terra. I know that there's kind of a lot of overlap there. So it sounds like once Terra is rolled out, like Adam should be pretty close behind, right?
Yeah, it should be, because they're both Cosmos chains, and so the code is almost identical between the two of them. It's just a matter of just like building the smoke tests, integration tests, the infrastructure of like running a Gaia daemon within the infrastructure of a Thor node, little testing and all that kind of stuff. Like it should be relatively quick to edit.
That's huge, yeah. And then you mentioned kind of on the same lines of that, like the synths to go IBC, like hopefully that's something that doesn't come too long after synths going live. So yeah. A lot kind of happening in the Cosmos Terra IBC world in the relatively immediate future.
Yeah, that's why I recently reached out to Jack over the IBC team, and I'm trying to like start that conversation and try to start moving on the IBC stuff, and so we can start beaming out these synthetics and the rune asset to Osmosis and Terra and Gaia and whatever else out there.
Awesome. Last thing on the agenda for today before we can open up to some questions. So I want to talk about some integrations that we've been seeing with THORChain the past couple weeks. I think in the past 2 weeks we've seen swaps to like from Bitcoin to Terra using Rango exchange, which uses THORChain obviously on the back end to facilitate the swaps. And then I saw there was a THORChain integration with Liquality wallet just a few days ago. So I'm going to pin those tweets up here. And that's really exciting that all these wallets are integrating THORChain and using it in the back end, like as it's meant to do.
Yes.
And also there's Cake Wallet here in the space. I mean, they're not speaking or anything like that, but if they'd like to come up at maybe not today, but at any point in the future, because I believe they're working on the Monero integration, or I'm sure they'll also be using THORChain in the back end of their app. So hey, what's up, Cake Wallet?
Yeah, absolutely. So like how we were saying before, how like the room asset gets price accumulation when people start using it without them even knowing it, whether you're like just earning Bitcoin on your Bitcoin or whatever. And the same thing with these Rango and Liquality and these things, like THORChain will become this kind of like invisible thing that everybody starts using all the time, just because it's for right now, it's actually the only way you can actually move across chains in a decentralized way, which is pretty fascinating. And so like I think this year we're going to see a lot more. Rango and Liquality is great, and Cakewall as well. Trustwall, I think, is working on that. I'm trying to reach out to 1inch. If anybody out there has some connections over at 1inch, I'm like trying to pull on my circles of friends or whatever, trying to make a contact introduction to the team over at 1inch. If anybody listening knows somebody over there, the 1inch team, that wouldn't mind like introducing me to them, send me a DM or whatever, and like connect me, please, because I'm trying to talk to those people. So this year, like that's one of my personal goals, and I'm working with the Nine Realms team and as well as others to like start contacting, reaching out to. Where right now we're talking like Badger DAO, for example, who's trying to bring Bitcoin to Ethereum, and what if they could support like native Bitcoin? I mean, that would be pretty good for them, right? So we're talking to Badger DAO, we're talking to all these things, and I'm going to start talking up a storm to all these different wallets and indexes and all these things to integrate with more and more and more things.
Yeah, seeing the attention to Rango is such a huge validation, especially for what's to come, because some of those screenshots that I saw that were like getting a lot of attention, and it's great even where it's at, but it was going from like Bitcoin to, I believe it was to I think one of the screenshots I saw was to like an IBC asset, and it was like Bitcoin to Ethereum, Ethereum to Terra Bridge, then Terra to Osmosis. It was like all these steps, and the total gas fees were like $200 something plus dollars, and also that you have to sign every transaction on that step. And it's like, then you see that that's already exciting. And then you think about, okay, what's the next step? Well, the next step is that entire Ethereum chunk is about to be wiped out in the next couple weeks. So meaning your total gas to do that route is going to go from like $220 to like $2. And then on top of that, with the aggregation stuff coming, it'll also be like a single transaction to sign rather than, routing through all these other steps that you have to sign transactions. And then if something goes wrong midway, then you have some asset in the middle that you you didn't end up where you were trying to go or something like that. So it's really bullish to see like the excitement that's getting, and then to think like, wow, it's going to be 10x better pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited about that too. Like that's going to be, once people realize how that's happening and how valuable that is and how that just kind of changes the game. I mean, people use Binance Smart Chain, even though it's completely centralized, just because it's got cheap fees, right? So if you want to, as you were saying, move from Bitcoin to, UST, you now have a mechanism to do that without going through, 3 or 4 different steps, signing transactions along the way and spending, as you were saying, like $200 to do so.
Exactly. Yeah. And just more on the nature of THORChain to be invisible, like seeing the Liquidity wallet, putting it in, seems very similar to like what we've seen roll out already with XDeFi. And it makes like navigating all these different islands so much simpler when it can just be potentially in one wallet, or when you start to see an app that's going to have a THORChain swap just enabled on the app side, and then you don't have to do all your own bridging and whatnot just to be able to use some app on a different ecosystem. If you can just have it done right in your wallet or right on the app, just massive. And then kind of ties back with like what we were saying earlier, is it's like, again, that's a thing where people don't even have to know they're using THORChain. They don't even have to know what THORChain is, but they very likely will be using it on the back end.
Yeah, and when they do so, they always drive value to the Rune asset. They increase the trade volume of the Rune token, for example, or whatever. Like it always, I mean, that's how the network is designed, that everything accrues value back to its core base asset.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like that'll just increase the rewards in, say, the Luna Rune or the UST Rune pools, and then that incentivizes more liquidity to come in, and then that more liquidity drives more Rune value capture, right. and then that means the Rune price goes up, which means the bond value has gone up, which means more liquidity space can be allowed. There's just it's wild.
Yeah, that's why they call it a black hole, right? It's just
exactly.
It's a flywheel.
It also enables the businesses of the wallets. Like for example, like a Cake Wallet integration. You could just swap right on your app. So users that are already using Cake Wallet can just swap from one asset to another, Monero, whenever it's integrated. And it also enables revenue to go back to the wallets who implement it, and they don't have to source their own liquidity and provide for security and all these things. They can just tap into THORChain on the back end and create a better user experience for the people who are using their app, and also it's another revenue source for the developers, and less time that needs to go into actually integrating all these features. You can just use THORChain's already baked in swaps and liquidity to provide that directly to your users without them ever even knowing that they're using THORChain or giving more value to Rune.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, question on that. I'm curious about, considering I'm not a dev. Like say you had, say you were like a Terra app and you kind of specialized in one specific thing, and you wanted to integrate like the ability to connect any any of these other chain wallets and do the THORchain swap and collect on that fee. Like, how simple is that for like somebody that's only familiar with their ecosystem to integrate with something like that? Like, is it pretty straightforward?
Well, so when you're using an aggregator, like I think that's what you're referring to, you're swapping from, let's say you're swapping from Bitcoin into UST, for example. You have to send the UST to some address first, and then take the UST and then put it into a contract. You don't want to send it directly to the UST per se, because it wouldn't be associated with your identity or your wallet of any kind. So aggregators will probably work in that sense of like getting you from point A to point B, but putting them directly into some other thing might be. I mean, it's possible to do. We can actually add support for that, I suppose. Actually,
I guess what I mean is like hypothetically, like obviously, just this is not a real thing, but like let's say OpenSea wanted to accept Bitcoin, like to for them to just like enable you to pay with Bitcoin and then collect on the swap. Like, is that like to integrate just like the swap feature and take the affiliate fee? Yeah. Like that pretty.
Yeah. That you can totally do. In fact, we want to expand that feature of the affiliate fee feature where you can actually choose. Right now, it just like it collects whatever your fee is in Rune, and then whenever you can just go ahead and like it just sends the Rune to your wallet, and then you can sell it into something else or do whatever you want with it. But I think the intention actually is to make a change to that where you can actually select which asset you want to acquire in an affiliate fee transaction, and you can say, "Oh, I want to acquire UST or something like this," and the network will. In order to save on fees and gases and this kind of stuff, it'll like accrue it in Rune for a period of time. And then once it gets to a certain like amount of dollars relative to the gas fee of the asset that you're sending to. And so UST is, is pretty cheap for the most part. So it wouldn't be that much, but like once it's like 10 times or 20 times, 100 times, whatever the number it's going to be, it would just like, oh, I have all this room. I'm just going to autonomously swap it into UST and send it to the the Terra address or whatever it is. But that's very easy to do. The only thing you need to do to actually use those affiliate fees is just customize the memo of the transaction, which is just like add some text at the end of it, which is, I don't know how you can make it any simpler than that.
Very cool. Yeah, I love this angle of it, THORchain being like a value add to any other product, and just they get to expand their on-ramp, and they also get a new revenue stream. Right. So
it's kind of funny, like the THORshark team, in their Thor token, they had this really interesting concept of at some point they're going to implement affiliate fees on their swaps and their UI. And then once we had that new feature I was just talking about, it would collect Rune, and then it would swap that Rune into the Thor token using the THORchain network itself, and then send the Thor tokens into their smart contract, which you lock up your Thor to get some Vault Thor or locked up Thor, and then you just own a percentage of that Thor pool, right? And so as more Thor tokens are just thrown into the contract, everybody just can be a part of earning yield on the UI of THORSwap, not just the manufacturers or the developers of it, but anybody who's bullish on THORSwap can acquire the token, lock it up into this smart contract. It's not available quite yet, but I think it will be eventually, and be able to earn yield on every swap that's going through the THORSwap UI, which is pretty fascinating.
What I'd like to do is just let everyone know that we're open for questions. You can come up on stage. You can just you need to be on mobile to do this, but you can hit the button to raise your hand and request to speak, and we'll let you up on stage. You can ask, Chad B, any of your questions about THORchain, or if there's anyone from any ecosystem projects here that would like to provide updates on what they're building, or any project. If you want to come up and just say what it is that you're building and how it relates to what we're doing, this is the time and place to do it. So hit that request to speak button, and let's get some people up here to ask some questions about what we're doing.
While people are thinking of questions or whatever, I have a question for you, Familiar Cow. So
yeah, what's up?
I want my Thor hammer. I know you're working with a blacksmith to get one done. I'm excited to get. I want a Thor hammer, like a nice iron, fucking heavy ass shit thing in my hand that's just gonna be baller as hell.
I have it right here. I'm looking.
Ah,
if you want it, let me know. I'll give it to you.
I'm gonna come. You're in New Jersey, I think, right? I'm gonna drive over there. And get it from you.
Yeah, I got you.
That's epic. Yeah. As we wait for anyone to ask questions, and also, by the way, like, feel free, even simple questions, like we can get into just like, fundamental stuff because I know a lot of times we're in the weeds here, but feel free to ask anything on your mind. But yeah, as we wait for some questions, I also back on Veneer Threads, Familiar Cows project. I just got my THORforce ones in. I just picked them up like yesterday, and holy shit, like in person, so much cooler. Like they're so cool in person. Yeah. So you guys gotta check out what Familiar Cow is doing. Is like physical, real life Nike Air Force Ones converted into THORChain THORforce ones, like hand done, customized, like the Nike swoosh split into the lightning bolt, glows in the dark. It's absolutely wild. Like I think my favorite, and you get like randomized attributes like that are physical on the shoe. And I think my favorite was that I minted like it's the Dubray. I didn't really know what that was, but Familiar Cow is a shoe nerd. But it's like the thing at the front of the toe box, like where the laces kind of come together. And I got like the gold ones that say, one says BTC and one says Rune, and it's like etched into the metal. It's so sick. Like looking at just like the gold Rune tag is so really, really cool. So great job with what you're doing with those.
I have a pair of those myself. It's actually in my office, like staring me in the face on my shelf. And I love those things. Those things are just baller as fuck.
Yeah, that's my debate right now. It's like, do I wear them or do I just like put them on a shelf?
I'm too scared. Like I like them so much, I'm scared to wear them. Like I don't want to mess them up.
Yeah, I guess we got to mint second pairs.
Yeah, thanks, guy. I mean, I appreciate I appreciate it. I mean, it's all done for the THORChain community because I think what's being built here is pretty special. So, I mean, if anyone is interested in minting, it's available to mint right now on THORChad's DAO. So just look up THORforce 1 Veneer Threads or go on THORChad's DAO and you'll see it there. We have 2 people up for questions right now. First up is Zab. What's up, man?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Good. So my question is in regard to Haven. And Chad, if I heard you mention Jersey. Somebody was over in Jersey. If you can give me some good news on Haven or just some cool updates, I will personally drive a hammer over to you and drop it off at your front door. So yeah, I'll make it a gold hammer. My family's got a jewelry business. Let's make this happen. So appreciate
get
you guys.
Get in touch with me. Get in touch.
You need a partner with Veneer Threads over here. Yeah, so the Haven team has been working with the core dev of THORChain for quite some time, trying to get Haven and also Monero integrated. The problem is that those two, that the network needs to understand what's happening on the external chain to know that some transaction occurred and how much funds are here, blah, 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 all that stuff. And because of the rig signature design of Monero and Haven, that creates a lot of complexity and difficulty for the network to determine what the state is on a chain where all the transactions are private. It creates more difficulty in that sense. And so I think we do have a design I think that fundamentally does work, but the negative is that it doesn't have the full feature set of every other chain. Like, for example, you wouldn't be able to add liquidity just Monero or just Haven. You would always need to contribute Rune. You always need to do a symmetric add. You can do an asymmetric add just on the Rune side, but you can't do asymmetric add just on the Haven side. And that's because of some complexities around like observing that a transaction actually was sent and who that actually address was sent from. Like that's the hard part. We can figure out that we received 10 Monero or whatever, 10 Haven, but we don't know who sent it. And that's kind of a problem because that person's going to want to come back later and say, I withdraw my Haven, I withdraw my Monero. But they can't do it because the network doesn't know that they are the ones that actually contributed in the beginning. And so that created all this complexity, like, how do we solve this issue? And so it's something that's still being worked on. And I'm still bullish on the idea of like getting Haven and Monero and other maybe Secret Network, maybe Zcash, like these things are all being kind of worked on. Actually, I don't think Secret Network's been worked on yet, but it will be. It's Cosmos space, so it should be relatively easy once you get Gaia going. But I mean, I'm bullish on getting all these things integrated and having all these privacy functionalities being available to not their individual chains, but also every other chain can utilize the privacy on Secret Network or Haven on the Bitcoin network in some sense. That's actually quite valuable.
Yeah, I had heard the last two pieces I had heard in discussion or through tweet conversations, things like that, was one of the options was, I guess it would, what you were speaking to, single-sided liquidity. And I think that's what you were just talking about. And then also it was the memo size was a bit of an issue, but I thought that they had gotten around that somehow or something along the lines.
For Haven, it's not an issue because I think Haven has 250 byte memo maximums, which is more than what we need. And that's actually the max memo size coincidentally within THORChain itself, that it allows just to secure itself from a dust attack of kinds or a thrashing attack. But anyways, but Monero is still a problem because Monero is like a 16 byte maximum, which, you can't fit jack shit in there. And we created Thor names as a mechanism to shorten like addresses, because a Monero address is like 97 bytes, like the actual address, or Monero address, Haven address is 97 bytes. And a Bitcoin memo up return is 80 bytes maximum. So that creates a problem of like, you can't swap from Bitcoin to Monero directly because the Bitcoin blockchain doesn't allow enough data to be put into that memo to fit it. And that's why we created Thor names, so you can create an alias to your Monero address that's like, 5 characters or something very, very small, and then be able to swap in a single transaction without needing to interact with the Rune network or the Rune asset at all. So it's still possible though, but the way you have to do that is what we call like swap receipts. And so you would create, that'd be a new transaction type on THORChain where you say, here's my transaction intent. I'm going to send in Bitcoin and I want it to become, XMR, and here's my swap limit. Here's my affiliate fee information, blah, 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 like all this kind of details. And then it would just give you like a short little, 16 byte, representation of that kind of intent. And so then you put that in your memo on Monero of like, oh, here's a 16 byte reference to a more detailed explanation of what my transaction intent is. And then that would allow you to swap from Monero to Bitcoin, even though you only have a 16 byte memo, right? Which is pretty restrictive. And we've talked to the Monero team about like expanding that out from 16 bytes to something, more reasonable, but they're very much against that, and fundamentally so.
Appreciate the updates. Thank you. Let me know where you want your hammer delivered. I'll throw in a grill as well. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, Zeb. Terra Degen, what's up, man? 0xN00.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, there you are.
Hi, guys. I had a short question. Basically, I was listening to one of your Chad's interviews recently about the upgrades on THORChain, and you mentioned how if I understood well, you said that Thor team is collaborating maybe on the tokenomics or something with Delphi Digital, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And that you are trying to find out how and what are the options for the fixed yield on the stable coins possible for UST maybe that THORChain can provide in the future. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I believe that like the whole background story about it is related to SYNs, maybe. So if you can maybe touch a bit on this topic, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around the SYNs and how they can be used in the DeFi, in the Cosmos ecosystem. And maybe like, is there any like a background at the moment collaboration with Delphi Digital, maybe for this Mars bank, where you can use maybe SYNs as a collateral or any kind of uncollateral loans that they are planning to give? Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. So the Delphi Digital collab wasn't so much a collab, but it was more of like we wanted to float by them some of the designs of THORify to get their viewpoint on, is it good, is it bad, is it flawed, is it perfect, like whatever. And we did the same thing with Multicoin. And so for that version of the THORify, which is, I think that was like V3, I think, V2 maybe. Delphi didn't like it. They thought that it wouldn't be economically sound in that case. Multicoin thought otherwise when we showed that design to them. And I think what helped me to realize actually is that I still think it's actually economically sound, but I recognize after talking to the Delphi people that it's so like almost like a crazy notion that it takes so long for your brain to kind of like get to that point in a sense. And so like it would have been hard to convince the community of its economic merits because it's so far away from like everything else we understand in the DeFi space. And there's so many hops your brain has to take to get to that place. And for a lot of people, that might be, a couple of hops too many in a matter of speaking. And so the newer design that we are using in the V4 and V5 design, it still has that same kind of general concept, but it kind of ramps it down quite significantly to make it a lot easier for people's, brains to wrap around it and why it's economically safe. So like, for example, the lending platform that we have currently kind of thinking about is that it makes an assumption about the price of the assets into the future, which no other lending protocol does this at all. And the assumption that it makes is that Bitcoin and Rune and Ethereum and these kind of blue chip assets will always outperform the dollar in the long term, like in the 3 to 5 year kind of time frame. And throughout history, that's always been true. Like it's never been a moment when that's not been true. Like if you had bought Bitcoin at any point in time with the dollar, you would always be up, within at the minimum at the maximum rather, 3 years. And so the network can make that kind of that statement of saying like, we always know these assets are always going to outperform the dollar because literally everything on the fucking planet, except for other shittier fiats, outperform. Like I have a can of Coke on my desk right here. I can teleport 5 years into the future and sell it for more dollars than I bought it for and in this time frame because the dollar is always inflating. Right now, it's actually 7.5%, which is like a 40-year high in America's history. And so because it can do that, we can make that assumption that the assets will outperform the dollar, and therefore we can allow it to be under collateralized. And while it's under collateralized, it generates massive yield for the network and for the POL and all those kind of things. So that's like it's kind of a weird concept that like nobody's ever done before in the space, and it takes some study and thinking and consideration to understand why this assumption is a safe assumption. And so we changed it to be specifically on the US dollar because it's easier for people to cognitively grasp in a sense. I think I answered your question, but I'm not sure if I did.
Yes, thanks. And any so there is no like current collaboration. This was everything that you were talking is discussion from the past, right?
Yeah, for them it wasn't a collaboration in designing something with us. So it's more of like, hey, we designed this thing. Give it a look.
Yes.
Give us your thoughts. What's good about it? What's bad about it? And then what's cool. And so we wanted to float these with like people who think about economics a lot, which like Delphi does one of those, like Multicoin thinks about economics a lot. And so we wanted to pull upon those relationships and those kind of gigabrains to check us and make sure we're not missing something or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. And the question regarding the like any exam, I mean, I'm really trying to see how SYNs can fit into possibly finance of other chains, for example, Terra.
Yeah.
Is there any like kind of like practical example that you can give of how is that possible? Like, anything.
Yeah, sure. So like when you mint a synthetic on THORChain by providing a layer one asset like Bitcoin, for example, and you mint a synthetic Bitcoin, it's now a Cosmos asset, right? Living on the THORChain blockchain. And so then you can use IBC to kind of beam that that the synthetic asset to another chain. An example chain might be Injective, for example. And Injective is a derivatives exchange blockchain built on Cosmos. Or it doesn't have to be Cosmos. Technically, it can be Polkadot. It can be technically even Ethereum is actually possible. It doesn't really matter. You can actually create an IBC bridge to Ethereum in some sense, and so it's possible to do it almost on any EVM chain. But the most easy and readily available and out of the box examples would be Injective and some smart contract on Terra or whatever that utilizes the asset to do trading or build another form of an AMM maybe, or who knows what.
Awesome, thank you. Next we have Douglas from the Monero community.
Hey,
good morning.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm just trying to hound you guys down, trying to see if I could get somebody from your team to come to the Monerotopia event we're throwing on April 7th in Miami to come talk about the integration that you guys were just talking about with Monero and Haven.
Yeah, that's April 7th, you said, in Miami?
Yeah, it's actually at the same time that the big Bitcoin conference is going on, and it's walking distance from there.
Oh, yeah.
But it's going to be on April 7th, and we would love to have you. We have Haven is going to be participating.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have you guys as well.
Yeah, I'm going to try to figure out if I'm going to go to that. I was actually partially planning that I was going to go to the Bitcoin event, like part of I was saying earlier in the conversation in the very beginning about I'm in talks with Bitcoin Magazine to maybe be a speaker at that conference, possibly. And so if I end up going to it, especially, happy to just do like a dinner or I don't know what. We can chat and figure something out. But I'm happy to kind of engage with the Monero community, of course. I mean, I'm fans of the Monero community, and I'm fans of the XMart asset and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. I'll send you a DM.
Cool. Please do.
Cool. We got Nervin up here as well.
Hey guys.
Hey.
So question for Chad. First one, Chad, is I just heard that you guys are gonna remove the soft cap soon. Do you imagine us hitting scale limitations in the future as well? A lot of people want to LP, but the hard caps are reached. How do you think that progression is going to go? Because we hear those comments about the caps are full, etc. And even after the soft cap is removed, there's still the hard cap. So what are some ways to mitigate that? And I have another question as well, but I just want to ask that first and just get your answer.
Yeah, sure. So the way that's mitigated in the network is that it uses the incentive pendulum. So if it theoretically happened, say tomorrow the hard caps were hit, we removed the soft caps, and then we added the THORchain, and then all those pools became incredibly deep very fast or whatever. That would mean that the LPs would earn basically zero yield on their positions, right? And all the yield, all the swaps and the yield that the network generates from those trades and the block rewards and all that kind of stuff would 100% be pushed over to the nodes, and the nodes be like, you're now earning bank crazy amounts of money. It's now more profitable, and therefore and you're incentivized to add more room to your node, or create another node, or have new nodes pop up out of nowhere. That just creates an economic incentive for them to add more room on the left side of that kind of equation in a sense. But also, what's naturally going to happen is people who are earning 0% yield on their UST room liquidity ad, they're probably not going to stay there. They're probably going to withdraw their liquidity and kind of leave the system, which in turn would cause the yield to go up for the other LPers who stayed in that system. So naturally, what's going to happen is it's a capitalistic market kind of figuring out for themselves of well, I'll stay in the pools if I'm earning X amount of yield, but I'm not going to stay in the pools if I'm earning Y amount of yield. That's too low for me, so I'm going to leave. And so that just naturally is going to create a kind of a balance between the left side of the bond and the right side of the pools, as I see it in my brain, and so that it'll just kind of steady itself out. It'll just kind of move back and forth like waves in an ocean, just kind of going up and going down, just kind of balancing each other out all the time.
Yeah, I think that process probably could be even better if there was a way for retail to have a pendulum switch between, okay, I'm not earning that much yield on the LP side. Maybe I'll just node, maybe with the light nodes that'll be more feasible. But I see your point. But then, like, if there is a lot of rewards on the node side, but then there's like a minimum requirement of 1 million nodes, then that just creates a huge barrier, right? So maybe anything that we could do to reduce that barrier might actually help with incentive.
Right.
More.
So the incentive pendulum, its effectiveness to do its job depends upon the amount of friction that it takes to move from one side to the other, right? In terms of how much time it takes and how much, capital and technical requirement, technical knowledge, all these kind of things. And in the yield sense, even though if everybody starts earning 0% yield in the LPs, people may not notice that in the first minute. Maybe it'll take them a day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever the hell the number is for them to start to kind of realize what's happening and maybe make a choice to leave or withdraw their funds, whatever. And so you want that to be like as free flowing and as fast correcting as possible. And the part of the design of light nodes that we're going to be working on this year is the idea that you can just move your value, your capital from the pool side, swap it and remove it as LPs, swapping it as a single asset of just Rune, move the Rune over to a light node, and then 5 seconds later, move the Rune from the light node back over to adding it back to one of the pools on the pool side, and having that kind of single transaction thing you can do, and you can correct your position within 5 seconds and move your Rune from one side to the other will just make the incentive pendulum much more effective to be much more real time in its ability to correct the ratio between the pools and the bond.
Maybe that reminds me of maybe there's a good opportunity to maybe also have yield aggregators that like YFI, just handle that. We just submit Rune to this field aggregator and they'll do the balancing and stuff like that, and I just care about the yield, right? So maybe that could also
somebody could write a bot, somewhere somehow that does this, which is not terribly different than what an arbitrage bot does to some degree. It just arbitrage in a slightly different way. Rather than correcting pool prices, it's correcting income, yield, how yield functions. And so, you have to figure that out about what the fees are going to be associated when you move from one side to the other, and you worry about, impermanent loss, because if you decide to add liquidity in the pool side and you don't stay in for those 100 days and you move to the bond side, you might experience a little bit of impermanent loss at that point, and the network wouldn't cover you in that circumstance of scenario potentially. So that needs to be kind of covered in your calculus of okay, when do I move my position from the left side of the equation to the right side of the equation, right? That has to be all calculated and formulate some sort of risk profile in that context. So somebody's going to write that code. It won't be me because I'm going to be busy doing other things, but somebody else is going to be writing some sort of bot that does that. And hopefully they make it open source for everybody to kind of participate and take advantage of that. And that'd be great. It'd be doing a service to this project.
Right. And the second question is a little more fun. Feel free to not answer it, but what do you think is what's your best guess on what will be the non-Rune TVL at the end of this year?
What will be the non-Rune TVL? Oh gosh. I always try to avoid these types of questions because I don't want to get into, I don't want to be
shilling your bags.
I don't want to be seen as somebody who's trying to shill my bags or I always want, whenever I would try to sell people on Rune or sell people on THORChain, I never do it saying the TVL is going to be $10 billion and the Rune price is going to be $1,000 million or something like this. I always try to sell them on the value proposition. I always talk about here's what the value that it's actually contributing to the world, and get people to buy it on that pretenses rather than promising them that it's going to go to to the moon or whatever. And not to mention that if I were to do that, there'd probably be a legal issue with that. I think it might be, I might get in some trouble with the SEC potentially. So I always I never talk about what the TVL is going to be or what the price is going to be or any of these things. To be honest, I don't even really fucking know. I hope that's good, but I actually have no real sense of that. And I can't speak with any kind of sense of reality in that regard. So what I can speak about in reality and feel very confident about is the value proposition and how we're changing the space completely. And that I will talk all day about and go on podcasts and Bitcoin conferences and whatever else and talk from that perspective.
Great answer. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yep. Thanks for asking the question.
Is there anyone else that would like to come on and ask any questions to chat? We do these every week as well. So there's plenty of opportunities to ask questions to Chad or any of the Nine Realms folks that are developing things on the protocol, to ask questions to the core devs. So I'll just give it another minute here. We'll see if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about a question like during the week or whatever, you can always try to tweet out at me, and maybe I'll see your tweet. I don't always pay close attention to Twitter, just because I'm focusing on delivering code and shipping code. But if you think of a question, you want to come on to the weekly update here on Friday, like every Friday, come on up, ask your question, happy to answer it.
Yep, Chad's a builder right up until he gets to the Monero conference, Miami.
If we don't ship features, we all can blame Douglas. Douglas has ruined THORChain, everybody. We all hate Douglas now.
Yeah, K coefficient.
Hey guys,
bring it.
Hey Chad, I was just wondering if you can or cannot discuss, or even maybe you don't know status on POL.
Yep.
And where those funds come from. Yep. And kind of the roadmap of where you'd like to see that go, or I think you have some Doge at this point, and probably some Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I really don't know. So
the POL it's still kind of in its planning phase. I actually opened up a PR to add the POL into the code base a month ago or 2 months ago, whatever it was, in one particular design implementation of how that functions. We didn't deploy it or make it into like a real thing quite yet, because we wanted to make sure that like THORFi is kind of solidified and we have a plan planned before we didn't want to launch the POL and then realize we wanted to change how the POL works so that it could better benefit the other THORFi features. But the current thinking is that the POL would effectively have two sources of income and then one expense. And so that would be the first source of income is that it just takes 10% of the network yield off the top, like of all LPs and nodes, just takes 10%. And so it's constantly just adding more and more assets to the POL. And those assets are being used to deepen the pools commonly or what have you. The second source of income is that the lending that people are doing, the lenders provide a collateral, and they get that collateral back. In fact, that's why it's considered to be a zero interest loan, is because the network profits from the yield of the collateral while the collateral is kind of sitting there in limbo for over a period of time that's sitting there in limbo. And so that also, generates yield towards the POL. Now I think it's even compounding yield because just basically the number of LP units that it has is just like constantly increasing, more or less, from the POL's perspective. And then the one expense it has to it is that's the POL is effectively what's going to be paying out. At least in part, not entirely the POL. In part, it's paying out the Thor savings, that fixed rate interest that people have on their Bitcoin or their Luna or whatever. In part, is paid by the POL. In a sense. And so, that's it in a nutshell, how it functions from a high level perspective, but there's still more details to be kind of ironed out, and we probably won't deploy it into the network until THORFi is more or less agreed upon, and the communities kind of has support behind this particular design, and everybody kind of thinks this is a good way for the project to move forward, and then we code it and deploy it and, feature flag it on and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Great.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's just probably a lot of confusion around it and how it actually supplements yields for LPs versus, decreasing yields.
But so the POL,
where we're at with that and everything.
Any POL that I've seen thus far, none of them contribute to LPs. None of them do. Technically, they're almost always taking away from LPs, even in like Ohm's design, right? Like it's all taking away from LPs, and they do that on purpose because the problem with LPs is that they're humans and they can get FUD and scared, and they can withdraw their liquidity in a bear market, and the pools become very, very shallow at that point. That's the kind of the problem that the POL is trying to solve, right? Or at least from Ohm's original perspective. And so we're doing the same thing of like, we're kind of have this POL that's constantly just adding more liquidity to the pools, just continuously just contributing back to the network and increasing the pool depths, but also the lending. This is one of the great things with the lending design is that in the scenario where the collateral goes beneath the debt, and you say you have $100 of debt and the collateral, of your ETH collateral went down to $30, let's say hypothetically speaking, like you're not going to spend $100 to buy the $30 of ETH because that makes no fucking sense whatsoever. But that's really good for the network because that means that there's collateral that the network has that will never be withdrawn from the network. Even though a person could withdraw it, you might want to withdraw it, right? But you never would because you would lose a bunch of money if you did it, which is actually positive.
Yeah, that would be really dumb.
That would be really dumb.
Really dumb.
Which is great because in a bear market, that would mean that everybody who provided like collateral into the system, their collateral is worth less than their debt, and none of them are going to take their collateral back. Which means that in a bear market, we have the POL is actually empowered by the lending protocol, which is like fascinating as fuck to think about. And so like it keeps the pool depths, relatively deep. And even in a bear market, which is like mind-bogglingly amazing, right? Without actually needing to raise huge amounts of money through, in Ohm's case, they sell bonds at a 10% discount, whatever. We don't need to do that. The lenders play that role for us. And so when the value of that collateral goes above the debt, after we get out of the bear market 3 or 4 or 5 years later, where the hell it is, then that collateral has been earning yield for like 4 or 5 years, generating huge amounts. Like, they put in $100, but the network actually gained like $300-400 in yield this entire time, which is like amazing for the network. But the POL is now super fucking deep as shit because it's been generating massive amount of yield and this massive amount of liquidity for over like a long period of time. So that's all very, very, very positive for the network perspective. It's fascinating. It's all to think about.
Yeah, let's fucking go. That's all I gotta say.
L to the F to the fucking G. Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. If you guys can, put that down on paper in a simplistic way, I think a lot of it has to do with Rune is the base asset, settlement asset, right? I mean, that's the big differential between these other bonding rebase type of things, right? Is we have the power of the Rune. The token design it's just unbeatable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we already have it on paper already. A couple of different designs. I think the thing that's really kind of stuck right now within the dev team and THORify is like, what is the THORUSD implementation? Is it a UST kind of like design style, which has really positive benefits to it, or is it more of this MIM style design where it drives value into the pools more directly, whereas the UST style design burns Rune and therefore increases the price and therefore deepens the pools? It's a bit more indirect, but it happens, right? And so there's like this kind of debate internally about like which mechanism you want to use, and we're still kind of feeling it out in some sense. But once we actually figure out the THORUSD design that we like, that benefits the network the most clearly and is the most economic secure, and it maintains the peg properly and all those kinds of things, I think the Thor savings and the lending design, I think everybody's more or less in agreement on, because they just love those elements. Because like the idea that the network would actually support the idea of like you can get a loan on any asset, right? Like on which is like cross-chain lending, where you have like as low as 101% collateralization, up to 300% depending upon some attributes, and like 0% interest on that. And like you can pay it back whenever the fuck you please. You don't have to do it back within the next year or whatever. Like that's a no fucking brainer. Like that's a fuck ton better than every other lending platform out there today by a fuck ton. I mean, I don't know. I can't even think of a reasonable argument why you wouldn't want to participate in that, to be honest with you. And so like, we're super bullish on this idea. And we think we can really pull this thing off, and we think we can change DeFi just by doing that. But we need to kind of solidify our definition of THORUSD and how that functions in a secure way.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people initially think, well, why won't everybody do that? And then that'll just drain the funds. If you're everybody's taking out under collateralized loans, then there won't be anything left. But that's not the case.
No, so if you're always starting over collateralized, right? Either you're starting at like 101%, so you're a little bit over, or you're at, I think it can go as high as like 3%, 300%, where you're doing like $300 and you get $100 worth of. So you're always starting over collateralized.
Oh, right.
Collateralized. Okay. But if the network gets to a place, what normally happens when the collateral, could hit a bear market or whatever, or there's a pullback because Elon Musk tweeted or whatever the fuck happens, people get liquidated and they lose a bunch of money. And that's super stressful for anybody who's done lending. Like, you hate this because you have to kind of keep like constant eye on your loan collateral. And if it gets below a certain number, you have to quickly just throw some more ETH at it, or Luna or whatever it is that you're doing. And that's super kind of stressful. Not to mention that the interest rates are fluctuating like crazy on, something like an Aave or a Compound. So you want to make sure you're not getting fucked by okay, the interest rate just jumped to 40% today. And oh shit, I'm getting ass raped by this variable rate interest system. Right. And so but THORChain is saying hey, there's a fixed rate interest. And by the way, that number is 0. And there's no liquidations. So you don't have to worry about coming back tomorrow and then all your money's fucking gone. You don't have to worry about that, right? The network actually takes on that risk for you because it believes that Rune and Bitcoin and Ethereum will surpass the dollar's value in the long term. And that's a very safe bet to make, at least from my perspective, that's true. And so it becomes the most stress-free loan that you could possibly have. And you can your ratio of how much dollars you get versus how much collateral you added is going to be better than pretty much every other system out there. So it's going to be such a fucking no-brainer to me.
Yeah. I'll be doing it. And then I'll be LP. Then I'm just going to LP all that stuff. So.
Yeah.
Or run a node.
Once we actually solidify the THORFi stuff, and we release that kind of that document for the community to kind of start reading and understanding and commenting and criticizing and all these things, we should do a Twitter Spaces thing, and we can just dive into the inner depths of it, and people can yell at me for being an idiot or not, but they can, have a conversation.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thanks. 2 more quick questions. We have 2 people up here. First is Gustavo.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call, man. The Spaces is awesome. First time listener. I've been in crypto and DeFi for a little bit now. And to be honest with you, I feel a little intimidated by everything that's going around THORChain. Just the basic concept of how I can swap native BTC, for instance, with a different type of asset using one particular wallet. Mm-hmm. How do I go? How would I start? Can you direct me to an instruction manual, or maybe you could just give me a basic background as to how would I approach doing any type of transaction in your protocol?
Do you guys want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So I would start by checking out, there's various interfaces, right? So THORChain itself doesn't have one interface, but, I would recommend THORSwap for sure. As far as where to actually go to do your swaps. So if you go to THORSwap, then just check out Connect Wallet, and you'll see all the various wallet options. You could just download a key store wallet, for example, which will give you wallet addresses on all the chains that are integrated. You could also, it also depends what wallets you're already using, right? If you want to do something, if you want to swap from Ethereum and you're already using MetaMask and comfortable with that, you could connect that. There's Ledger integrations. You can also use XDeFi, which is a browser extension wallet, and they'll another multi-chain one. So you'll get all your various addresses there. So you could just connect XDeFi and swap between various chains there. yeah, with THORswap, there's a lot of resources too. So I would say to check out LP University. It's a Discord where they've got all kinds of help with like various scenarios and like how LPing works and stuff like that. You can check out the THORswap Discord too. And I'm actually helping with THORswap putting out tutorial videos, which are on THORswap community YouTube, and they're also around on various articles and stuff like that. But yeah, that's where I would probably start. Is I would just get set up with one of the multi-chain wallets is probably the easiest thing to do in my personal opinion, like say a Keystore or XDeFi, and then just get whatever assets you want into those wallets, and then using THORswap for a swap is I don't know what you're familiar with, but like if you've used say like SushiSwap or like Astroport on Terra, maybe stuff like that, like it's a very
Right, I've done that. I am able to swap. However, I just never attempted to try to swap using, like for instance, MetaMask. It will have to be, if I'm on the Ethereum mainnet, it will have to be ERC20 tokens only. But
right.
How would I integrate that with BTC? But now you mentioned either Keystore or XDeFi, and those wallets will be able to integrate the different chains, correct?
That's right. Those wallets are already multi-chain. So you have like a Bitcoin address, you have an Ethereum address, you have like a BNB address, like all within those wallets. Okay. Or you could connect two different wallets with THORswap. Like again, since we're talking about multiple chains, so like for example, once the Terra integration is out, you could connect Terra Station and you could connect MetaMask, and then you could do a swap between the two that way. So you could like swap from your Terra Station to your MetaMask or vice versa, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yes, but using some type of bridge, or would that be handled by...
That's using THORChain itself. So that's THORChain's core feature is bridging. Oh, wow. Is not it's different than like what we normally think of as a bridge, but in effect, yeah, you're doing a true cross chain swap, and it's routing through Rune on the back end and stuff like that. But you don't even need Rune if you don't want to. You can just connect the two different chains, and then the swap itself is like similar process to how you'd walk through like a SushiSwap swap, just you have two different wallets connected on two different chains, and yeah, it's
simultaneously two different wallets.
Yeah, you can do that, or like I said, you can just do like if you have a Keystore or an XDeFi, like those already have like many chains in the one single wallet, so you have options. It's just kind of like what's.
Okay. Well, you've definitely given me some insight, at least a starting point. I'm going to get in there and start experimenting, and I do have MetaMask. I started out with MetaMask, but I'm staying away from MetaMask because of the high gas fees.
Yeah, just keep in mind with THORChain, like you're dealing with on-chain transactions. So if you're swapping from Ethereum or to Ethereum, like you're dealing with Ethereum. So meaning you have the fees there. But if you're swapping between Bitcoin and Rune, then you have like the Bitcoin on-chain fee. Or if you're swapping from BNB to soon Terra, then the fees would be super cheap because you're dealing with those chains. So it's just kind of like dependent on what you're actually doing.
I got it. Okay. And like, as far as doing anything else aside from swapping, say, am I at this point, can I actually already like put up my BTC for collateral, say, for instance? Is that currently available?
Yes. So you can put your BTC, your native BTC, right from your ledger if you have a ledger. Now you can put it right in the THORChain liquidity pools. And I just want to point out that while Chad was talking, I put a bunch of resources in the pinned tweets above this space. So if you click on the space, you'll see there's like 5 or 6 pinned tweets kind of about the things that we've discussed today. And that includes some good, really, really good resources about learning about THORChain. First would be LP University. And LP University is a great resource for learning about liquidity pools and strategies. So I highly encourage you guys to, if you're unfamiliar and you want to learn more about it, join their Discord. And there's just a lot of good information about becoming a liquidity provider, like for Bitcoin, for example. There's also a THORChain community Twitter account, which is another community-run Twitter account for news and updates and things. So this is all community managed accounts. And there's THORnoobs who posts, new, easily digestible information. And then there's Grassroots Crypto, who posts YouTube videos about all these topics. So make sure you follow all those accounts up above and use them for resources.
I'll look up the pinned tweets and I'll bookmark them. Well, I have to say congratulations to all the devs. This is like amazing. It's like something that I, in my mind, always thought, man, if only this thing was available, and you guys are on the right track. I wish you nothing but luck and nothing but the best.
Awesome. Yeah, that's how we feel with THORChain too. It's like just solving such a fundamental, obvious, massive problem in crypto, something that we've needed all along. So amazing. Just to clarify one little thing there, is you had mentioned collateral. And
yes.
So like when we were talking about like the borrow and lending stuff, like those features are definitely still down the road. Like that's kind of thinking about like what's going to be possible with this like core stuff. So, but that's not something you can do right now. Like you can't now borrow.
It's just like LP, and I can LP though.
Yes, you with Rune exposure. So you can every pool on THORChain is pooled with Rune. So because that's like basically what facilitates the cross-chain swaps on the back end. So you're going to have, as of right now, the only yield opportunities include having 50 exposure to Rune. But yeah, you can do that. You can add it from only Bitcoin if you wanted to, though. Like you could connect like a Bitcoin ledger and add to the BTC Rune pool, but from only Bitcoin. But on the back end, you're going to end up with the 50-50 exposure.
I got you. I understand. Okay, great. Once again, thank you for taking my call. And again, have a great weekend and nothing but the best. I wish you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sabo.
All right, I think that's about it for questions today. Again, we do this every single week on Fridays. If there's any suggestions that anyone has for the show, make sure to let us know, because we're always looking to improve and make sure that the community's questions are addressed, and just to put good content out about THORChain to everybody, and make sure that everyone knows what's coming up and is excited about it just really is like the cutting edge development in crypto right now, in my opinion. That's why me and Chad THOReau are involved, because we're just really excited about where the protocol is going. So yeah, thank you everybody.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Familiar Kyle, for hosting it and running this thing every week. I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. Thanks to everyone for coming. Thanks for Chad for building the thing, and for coming and speaking about it, and always being generous with your time. And yeah, this was awesome. I know myself personally, I get more bullish every single time I hear you speak, Chad. So I need some more Rune, is how I feel after every single one of these conversations. But yeah, thanks to everyone tuning in, and we'll run it back the same time next week.
All right, yep. And Chad and I are going to try and do some other like supplemental talks as well, like during the week. We still need to figure out all the details, but yeah, we're going to try and get as much THORChain content out to everybody as needed. So, all right,
sounds good.
Crypto is real.
See you guys.